Welcome back to another episode of Gritty Iron Gang. What we got today is a Week 7 recap. Let's just jump right into it. Thursday night, we had the New Orleans Saints hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. Two early touchdowns from Travis Etienne put the Jacksonville Jaguars up, gave them a nice cushion, put them in a comfortable position against the Saints offense. That leaves a lot on the table offensively, if you ask me. I'm out on Derek Carr. This guy is a check down king. Skip Bayless calls him used car, and I think I've seen enough. I've stood up for this guy in the past. I've made arguments for him being one of the better quarterbacks. I for sure think he's an elite leader. I made arguments saying, if the Vikings had him instead of Teddy, who knows? They could have made a couple runs, who knows? But from what I've seen lately from Derek Carr, he's just not the guy. The offense as a whole becomes limited when he's playing like this. It becomes predictable. Alvin Kamara had 14 targets. Travis Kelce had 13. So that says enough in that stat right there. It also doesn't help when Alvin Kamara is in the game. If he's not out on the passing route, he does not help in pass protection. So New Orleans Saints have a lot of questions and a lot of worries offensively that they need to figure out internally. Jacksonville on the other side, the defense has been impressive for the third week in a row. They put together a pretty impressive all-around game, Offensively, you're scoring 31 points. That's good with me. If you can do that week in and week out, you're going to be a dangerous team going forward. What do you think about this Thursday night football game?
Yeah, I think it was, one of those. I mean, it was pretty ugly for being 31-24, if you ask me. But I think Jacksonville did what they needed to do to come out with a victory. Um, Obviously, they're putting up points, which is a good sign. Defense was kind of a little bit of a letdown in this game, but overall they got it done. New Orleans, they showed a bit of life in the offensive side compared to what they have been showing. But at the end of the day, it's just like you said. I think New Orleans just has too many question marks. Derek Carr, not the guy. I don't know what they need to do over in New Orleans to get back to their old ways of the Sean Payton, Drew Brees days. That's probably going to be a tall task to accomplish, but you got to start working to get there, or get better than that. So I know those New Orleans fans, how diehard they are, living and breathing the black and gold. They're not feeling too well right now, past few years, but overall, I mean, but with how that division's laid out, it's not, it's not the end of the world right now. So they just got to keep fighting and grinding and seeing where they end up at the end of the season. But I just think overall with this game, I think Jacksonville continues to improve. I think they're going to be a very tough out come playoff time because I do expect them to make the playoffs. But this game, these Thursday night games tend to be, even there if they're high scoring, they tend to be somewhat ugly. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not reading into it a whole lot for Jacksonville. They did what they had to do. A win is a win in this league, and that's all that matters. But yeah, New Orleans, a lot of question marks, and that's about all I have for this game. It wasn't the prettiest of games, it wasn't the most electrifying of matchups. So it is what it is.
No, these Thursday night games, they're pretty much hit or miss, usually miss. But like you said, Jacksonville's they're well on their way to earning that number one seed in the AFC South, hosting a playoff game. New Orleans, they lost, but they're still in that race in the NFC South as well. That's always going to be a wide open contest down there.
Yeah.
Let's head north a little bit, where we had Detroit on the road facing the Baltimore Ravens. Like I said last week, Baltimore is probably a better team than Detroit, but Detroit has been the more consistent team this season. Today, I think we saw the all-around performance that we were looking for out of Baltimore. The defense coming into the game was pretty much number two across the board behind Cleveland. They proved why they were number two across the board behind Cleveland. I couldn't have asked for a better defensive performance. Offensively, we got a little bit of that Lamar-Villis that we saw in that MVP year. Total yards in the first half for Baltimore, 355 compared to Detroit's 97. The score was 28-0 going into the half, and the question from there was, were we going to be able to close out Detroit? We did outscore Detroit 10-6 in the second half, so I guess I don't really have any complaints there. My only concern is, can we close out these teams in a closer game in the second half? But maybe we'll see that going forward. What'd you think of this game, Detroit at Baltimore, 6-38?
Yeah, I think Detroit got humbled a little bit today. Going into this game 5-1 amongst the elite teams that are 5-1, like Philly, KC, San Fran, Miami. I mean, you're in good company so far, being 5-1 amongst those teams. So but I'm not gonna say they're letting it get to their head or anything. I don't think they are. I just think, like I said to you earlier today, it didn't seem like the Lions even bothered boarding the plane to head out to Baltimore. They just didn't. I mean, the first three drives were three and outs. You're not going to have success against a team like Baltimore doing that. Um, Look, Baltimore made Detroit look like a 1-5 team today, if you ask me. So, I mean, look, Lamar wasn't sacked. He was pressured on what was it, not 9 of 30 dropbacks or something like that. Let me double check my shit here. Something like that. But he look, Lamar looked like 2019 Lamar today, and that's a good sign going forward for this Baltimore team. And I think Baltimore is one of those teams that's a very scary team, especially in that loaded AFC. You can't count them out. They're in a tough division. They play hard nosed football. If they can build off of this performance and start to be more consistent and do what they did today, the league needs to be put on notice about Baltimore, because look, sky's the limit for Baltimore if they can continue this and build off of this. So, but the Lions, I just don't think, I don't see the Lions being led by Jared Goff going to the NFC Championship or Super Bowl. He needs to be surrounded by absolute beasts on both sides of the ball. And this Lions team, as good as they've been playing, and as good of a head coach as they have, they're still in the building process of becoming who they want to be. So while this may be a great start and a great season so far, they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of building to still, like, they have a lot of building blocks to go off of moving forward, but they're not there yet. So while I do think they're a playoff team, they're not going to make a deep run, and that's my prediction. So, um, kudos to the Lions and to their fans for having a special season after all these years, but it's just not good enough yet. And um,
You said
I
special season like it was week 18 or something, and they just lost the
well,
playoff.
being five. I mean, a lot can as early as a lot can happen, but I mean, being 5-2 now. Look, they don't have the toughest schedule. They're still a tough team. They're gonna be hard to beat, and they're not scared of anyone. So that, in a sense, leads me to just, I believe in them in a sense, but it's just not all there for me to be all in on the Lions this year. Um, but and you know where this game really surprised me, though, is because the Lions up until this point this year have been absolutely dominating the trenches offensively and defensively,
Hmm.
and the script was flipped today. Like, they got dominated both sides of the ball in the trenches. I barely noticed Aiden Hutchinson out there. It's for them to be successful, they have to be dominant on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. That is what it is for Detroit this year. They have to dominate the line of scrimmage, both sides, and um, their way to success each game they play. And if you can neutralize that, then you're sitting pretty against this Lions team this year.
Yeah, I knew going into the game the Lions had some injuries in the defensive backfield that we could take advantage of. So I know that was a lot of pass yards from Lamar, but I knew he was going to have some success against that unit back there. But like you said, to your trenches point, that was a surprise. We were able to neutralize Aiden Hutchinson. And on the other side, Penei Sewell might have had his worst game of his career against this Baltimore front. So
Yep.
that was a really big key in this game, was that offensive line being able to neutralize Detroit's defensive line, which I think is the strength of their defense, and then vice versa, because that's what gets everything going. I don't want to believe that David Montgomery is that big of a key for this offense to be that successful. I really think it was like you said, we were able to neutralize that offensive line and keep that offense very limited in what they were able to do.
Yep.
We'll stay in the AFC North right here. We have Cleveland on the road to Indianapolis. So Deshaun, after his injury, he comes back. He leaves the game with a head injury. We assumed it to be a concussion. He passes the concussion protocol, yet he remained on the sideline. So that's something we're going to monitor. And I'm just keeping my eyes on Deshaun in general after what I've been witnessing these past 3 weeks to a month out of his football behavior, leadership, and all the above. That was almost a haunting decision for the Cleveland Browns because PJ Walker, although he had some success in a place like Carolina last year, a team that was a bottom feeder, in this situation right here, the best defense in the league, a good run game, some weapons offensively, in a wide open AFC, I think the Cleveland Browns need to stop playing around. They need to go out, go get Jacoby Brissett again. Because if Deshaun's going to keep being hit or miss every week, we can't keep throwing the rookie Dorian Thompson Robinson. I might have messed up your name. Forgive me if I did. Or PJ Walker. These guys just aren't ready to take that team to the next level. We've seen Jacoby Brissett be able to manage a game, and I do have faith in him in a first round or second round playoff series as a quarterback for the Cleveland Browns if Deshaun Watson can't go. So that's pretty much my takeaway outside of Indianapolis being a very competitive team, and they're going to be in that battle for that 5, 6, 7 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, for me, look, as good as this Browns defense is, it's just going to waste this year. I mean, they had a decent day today, but they gave up a good chunk of yards. I think 456 to the Colts with Minshew leading the way. It's not the greatest, but look, Myles Garrett, he's well on his way to a Hall of Fame career. But
and a DPOY.
yeah, and if you ask me, my take at this point, I'm out on Deshaun Watson. He's not going to replicate what he did in Houston. He's not the
No.
same guy. I think all this legal shit has changed him for the worse as a player. It's just there's too much mental shit there. He's taking himself out of games. He's not ready to suit up, and then he's getting hurt, and then he's not making plays. He's not consistent. I think Cleveland made one of the worst mistakes for their future by giving him that type of money, that type of contract. Completely out on Deshaun Watson. Not a believer, won't be unless he absolutely makes me eat my words. But I think this dude is cooked. A lot of talent there still. He's a very talented athlete and everything. But you took over. You had to take over a year off of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. You had last year as your kind of wake up. Let's get back in the groove of things. All last year looked horrendous. This year might be even worse, honestly. And it sucks because this defense for Cleveland, one of the best they've had in years, and one of the best in the league this year. And this offense is just fucking it all up. So for me, like I said, out on Deshaun, believe in this defense, but without an offense and a reliable quarterback, you're going nowhere. So Cleveland, to me, they'll put up great games, sometimes, but the other times it looks god awful. And on the Colts side of things, look, I think Shane Steichen is actually going to be a hell of a coach for the Colts. I think they got the right guy to lead them. Players are buying in. You're in damn near every game. You're surprising people this year. Even with with AR out, Minshew comes in, and you really don't skip a beat, and it helps that JT's back there now too. So the Colts are a pretty tough team this year, and it's respectable. So while I want to give the Colts their flowers, I can't because I'm so stuck on the Browns just absolutely being. I'm not saying they're a dumpster fire because they're not, but it's like they leave so much to be desired besides the defense. And yeah, they had a down game today on the defensive side, but that offense and the quarterback situation, it's the same old Browns, bro. It's the same old Browns.
I agree with that. Obviously, the defense, you don't want to see them give up 38. I have a hard time seeing them giving up 38 at any point again this season. But that quarterback situation not being reliable, I mean, I agree, man. They're just going to be stuck in purgatory. Same old quarterback situation has been the downfall of this Browns organization. They have every other position covered for the most part. Offensive line is really
Yep.
good. Your running back went down, but you have a really good backup, and then you have Kareem Hunt behind him, who he by the way scored the game-winning touchdown with about 15 seconds left in this game. So you have the pieces around to be very competitive and make a deep playoff run. So I think you have to make that necessary move. Stefanski, you can say what you want about him. I do think he has a coach of the year though with Baker Mayfield a couple years ago. So he's proven to have some success in this league. I just think it's all on Deshaun, and right now he's not the answer.
Yeah, he's to me. He's just. I don't have to say much else. I'm just so out on him. I'm tired. I wanted to believe so much that he's going to come back and tear the league up and be back to his old self, but the man just you look at him each game and he looks like he's so checked out and mentally drained from everything in his life that it's just like if I'm Cleveland, I'm getting off that contract as soon as possible and I'm eating whatever money I have to.
This offseason is going to be fun because I think we'll talk about it later. But Daniel Jones, he could possibly be on the move if the Giants keep playing like they did today. Buffalo at New England. For me, this was for sure the surprise of the day. Again, the defense was not the issue for Buffalo. They have lost some major pieces over there, Matt Milano, Trey White, but this is just the Chargers on HGH, if you ask me. I mean, Buffalo has all the talent in the world. You look at them on paper, there's no reason they should have lost to a team like New England. There's no reason New England should have been in the game. 25-29. Billy Go gets his 300th W. I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted to come in here the way, man. One more closer to the record. What'd you think about this game right here?
I mean, congrats to Bill for getting a 300th win, for getting a much needed win. I'm still out on the Patriots going forward, but
For,
I'm even more out on taking the Bills seriously. I think this team has so many fucking holes and question marks surrounding them that they are not an elite team in the league. They're truly not. They'll put up. They're gonna obviously be in every game. They're gonna fight. They're gonna pull off, rattle off some wins. But the only one who gives a fuck on that team, to me at least, is Stephon Diggs. And this is your last year, Bills fans and Bills organization. This is your last year having Stephon Diggs as your top wideout. I truly think this will be after this year. It's going to be a huge reset for the Buffalo Bills, and Diggs will be on the move. Hopefully, somewhere that allows him to win more and be more consistent. But look, I just think I think the past 2 3 years of coming up short for the Bills, I think it's worn this team down. I think they're kind of mentally out of it just because they're like, oh, here we go again. I mean, there's too many times this year in this early season that they get off to such a slow start that they can't battle back. I think they're a team that once you get a couple scores on them before they're able to, you really have kicked them down and they can't get up. It's almost like a KO, a knockout punch for that team who's playing them because they just they don't have Buffalo to me does not have the will or the grit to them that other elite teams do. And once you hit them in the mouth, it's like they don't know how to hit back. And for me, for me, this game says more. This game says way more to me about the Bills losing than it does New England winning. And for me, this was like the nail in the coffin for me to just, Bills will be in the playoffs, sure, but and you got to take them serious. Obviously, you can't just go into the playoffs, play this team, and expect to win. That's not how it works. But what I'm saying is, they're not a team who the past couple of years absolutely terrifies me on paper. They're they're fucking beatable. Like there's nothing about this team that terrifies me. Like there's so many ways to beat this Buffalo Bills team, and they just don't have the quarterback or the overall playmakers on either side of the ball to scratch, claw, and fight their way to victory. Once they're down, they're out.
My feelings about the Bills over the past few seasons haven't changed. Josh Allen, I'm not as high on him as most people are. The run game is pretty much non existent. non-effective, even though, they're trying to implement that a little bit more this season. They're taking the ball out of Josh Allen's hands in the run game, giving it to James Cook and those guys, but they're just not really being that effective. Buffalo, man, like I said, they're a souped up Chargers, and they're just stuck with a lot of problems right now. I don't know what it is exactly. And I think we are going to find out a lot after this season, like you said, whether it be a lot of guys on the trade market or whether some stories come out as of why this team has fallen short the past 3, 4 seasons, hasn't even gotten to an AFC championship game. I mean, this is the year to prove it. And in a down AFC, I think they really have a chance to do it this year, but they got to put it together quickly.
Yeah, and I was gonna, while Josh Allen may have the, more playoff experience and better overall seasons, to me he's just a bigger, stronger armed Kirk Cousins at this point. Like there's nothing special about him. He can sling the rock. He's got running ability, but he makes boneheaded mistakes. He doesn't come up. I mean, you can argue obviously about the Chiefs playoff game that he's got some clutchness
He's
to
had
him, but
moments in the clutch, but for the most
he's
part, he's
he's
not
really
that
not that clutch though. Like I said, like when they gotta really put the pedal to the metal and battle their way back, this dude is very turnover prone. Like he will fuck it up in the end. And to me, like it's Kirk Cousins esque in a sense because he just hasn't proven in big moments that he's ready.
This may just be the Bills' fate. I mean, we all know the history of this franchise, the Jim Kelly days, 4 Super Bowls, 0 wins. So maybe it's just 4 chances at AFC championships now, 0 appearances, and they move on from this regime, from this era, and they try it again with a new one. We'll see. But like I said, down AFC, obviously we'll talk about KC later, but that's the team you're competing with. KC has some chinks in their armor. If you get it together, you could beat her at the end of the year. But as of now, I kind of want people to talk about Buffalo, how they were talking about Cincinnati to start the season when, I don't know, first five
Yeah.
weeks, because that's the kind of conversation they deserve right now. Next, we have Atlanta at Tampa Bay in the NFC South that we talked about. That is going to be very competitive. Mike Evans, he remains one of the most consistent players in the league, but that's pretty much all Tampa Bay had to offer in this one. I'm disappointed if I'm a Bucks fan. Atlanta botched 2 scoring opportunities back to back in this one right before the first half in field goal range, and to start the second half inside the goal line, they fumbled the snap. Tampa Bay recovered, wasn't able to gain any kind of momentum with that, and I think that was pretty much the key to this game right here. Bijan, with no touches in the first half, you can't capitalize off that, put any kind of points on the board, gain any kind of distance from this Atlanta team who has a struggling young quarterback. And you didn't even make him struggle this game. He looked fairly good. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, so he's this year's Justin Fields apparently, because he is probably going to run away with that title the way it looks so far. And I think he led a decent drive at the end of the game, 51-yard field goal. I mean, you'd like to get that a little closer, but Atlanta does get the win on the road in the division against Tampa Bay. What you think about this game at all?
I don't know much in this game. It was totally slappy. It was on both sides. It was just a bad game. But yeah, to me, the NFC South wide open, like we said. So every single game and especially every division game matters. But I just think my biggest takeaway is Tampa Bay is, while they got Baker Mayfield, he's having a solid season, but they're now starting to get that full Baker Mayfield experience where big moments result in small Mayfield.
Not really his thing, yeah.
So that's my biggest takeaway. I just think, it's when you in the grand scheme of things, when you have a full long 17 game season, the first 4 or 5 weeks Mayfield that we've gotten, that's not going to be what we're talking about at the end of the season. It's
No,
going to
because
be
that's
like,
that's where he thrives, is when he has to outplay expectations. And now when there are the expectations, okay, we're 3-3, we have a chance to go first in the division, which Atlanta is now after this win. That's when you start to see Baker Mayfield crumble. So in about 2, 3 weeks after Tampa Bay loses a couple games and there's no pressure, Baker's going to have a great game. Then they're going to be in
yeah,
contention for that number 1 spot. he's going to start crumbling again, and that's what he's going to be throughout his career. That's what we've seen up to
Yeah.
this point, anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I just that's my biggest takeaway for this game. It's just like while it's been a solid start to the year for Baker, and the narrative's kind of changing right now, I think this game is one of those like, hold up, let's reverse it and revisit this because this was not pretty. And like I said, they're getting the full Baker Mayfield experience now. While there can be some great moments, there's going to be just as much or even more worst moments with him.
I agree. Let's go to another division battle. NFC East, we had the Washington Commanders on the road at the New York Giants. Tyrod got the nod again for the Giants, and he looks to be gaining more trust with the guys and with the coaching staff. 279 yards on 29 attempts, 2 passing touchdowns on 62% efficiency with 0 turnovers. I can live with that. This Giants defense, this is more of what I expected to see coming into the season. The Giants
Yep.
offense only putting up 14 points, but getting the win. They did have 2 fumbles. The way Tyrod was playing, Saquon was back. I think they were going to be able to put up a couple more points on the board in this game without those fumbles. Pretty impressive win for the Giants. Commanders, again, you're up and down every week. You're really relying on Sam Howell, and that's really all it comes down to. If he plays well, you win. If he plays like he did today, around 50%, interception, no touchdowns, this is the result. So Washington loses to the Giants 7-14. What'd you think about this one?
Well, I do think the Giants defense is slowly starting to come on a little bit. But yeah, I just look, Washington's a goofy ass team. They beat some quality opponents, but the teams they should beat, they just can't get it done. And
Lay
it's
an
just
egg.
so they're one of those teams that is like your typical. We're gonna be around 500,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just what this team is. So you know, but I'd also, and then on the other side, I think the Giants again. For me, fuck it, I'm benching Daniel Jones the rest of
Sit his
rest of the
ass.
league. Like the rest of the season, I'm benching him. Like fuck your contract, bro. Yeah, that was our mistake. We're gonna eat that shit, but we have a much better shot with Tyrod leading the way, and I firmly believe that. I'm not saying Tyrod's anything special or he's that great because he has his very poor moments, but he gives his athletic ability and seeing the field, number one, gives you a much better chance to win week in and week out. So that's my takeaway for this game. And it's one of those games where I truly didn't give a fuck about it because who gives a fuck about the Giants and Commanders? Um,
For
but
real,
yeah,
though.
that's my takeaway. So yeah.
Well, let's move on. We had Las Vegas and Chicago. I'm sure you didn't give a fuck about this game either. We had Brian Hoyer in for Jimmy Garoppolo. Badgett was in for Fields, but it was all Foreman in the first half, though. 2 early touchdowns put Chicago up. They never really looked back. Devontae Adams, probably similar to Terry McLaurin on the Commanders. They're probably screaming for help and a way out of their city in their current situation right now because they probably want to be on contenders, more so Adams than McLaurin being an older veteran receiver. Las Vegas, if it wasn't for Buffalo, this would have been the most embarrassing performance of the weekend. To go out there and lose by 20 points to Chicago and a Division II quarterback, please.
Look, I am not even a Raiders fan, but I am so furious and to my breaking point with this Josh McDaniels experience as a head coach. You go back to his Denver days and now to fucking Las Vegas, and it's so putrid and god awful. It's like, dude, like I said earlier in the year when the league first started or when the season first started, Josh McDaniels will be the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots once again after this
Mm.
year. That is Bill's best chance at revitalizing that team, especially offense. Because while I think McDaniels can be a great coordinator, he should never be allowed to ever interview for another head coaching position ever again. The dude is a fucking bum. That he's. While I don't like the Raiders owner Mark Davis or whatever his name is, McDaniels has driven this team and organization so far into the fucking ground. Their players are fucking miserable. They don't like going to work every day. It's just a shit show. And when you lose to the fucking Bears without Justin Fields by 18 points, you should be ashamed of yourself. Just turn in
Yeah,
your fucking work badge and your keys and call it a fucking career, bro.
I don't know, man. It's an organization problem. I don't remember the last time they were good. I don't know if they'll ever be good again. If your owner has a haircut like that and he's brave enough to walk the streets, I don't think I can trust anybody in that organization. You have this situation with Chandler Jones where he's not a part of the team as it stands right now. Obviously, the situation with Antonio Brown a couple years ago, Henry Ruggs, maybe that one's not so much your fault, but you have a lot of guys in this organization, or have had a lot of guys in this organization who just don't get it, man. And it doesn't seem like anybody really gets it in this organization. They had a defensive back not too long ago they had to release who ran into his fourth, fifth, sixth problem with the law. So I mean, they just keep getting these kind of Alden Smith kind of guys and giving them chances, and just it's just not going to work. It's Dallas's little brother. If it's not you, you guys are like second cousins or something, because it's AFC Dallas, honestly, without the
Yeah.
success in the past.
It, without this, yeah, exactly. I mean, look,
The fact that you
it's
signed Jimmy G and thought it would solve all your problems lets me know everything I need to know.
you
He's
had to
good for
be
11 games a year, as many turnovers as he has touchdowns. That's just not the guy.
this Jimmy G. We gotta all understand this, and every true football fan who knows the game could see it from 100 miles away. Jimmy G's success has nothing to do with himself. It's all about Kyle Shanahan.
And if you can't see it, you're the problem. So,
And that's
Raiders,
my whole point
you're the
back to
problem.
McDaniels. McDaniels is nowhere near in the same class as Kyle Shanahan as a coach, not even a fucking coordinator.
We got fooled because he has the
Just
GOAT.
like Bill Belichick, though, McDaniels has rode the coattails of Tom Brady's success.
Well, let's not do that.
I'm calling it like I see it. Look at what fucking Bill is doing with the Patriots now without Tom Brady. Where's his winning season or where's his playoffs since Brady's been gone? He can thank Brady for those 7 rings, bro.
He got 6 over there.
Look, well, 6 in there, but he goes to Tampa Bay and gets a 7th. So let's just the dude's a goat. We can all agree on that now because that at least that's my opinion. But Bill looks. I mean, I'm talking the Patriots now, but Bill looks fucking miserable coaching without Brady. McDaniels doesn't even know how to tie his own shoes. It's I don't know that look. It's just I think Brady's got more smarts in his right pinky finger than Bill and McDaniels do combined.
You know how we know Brady's the GOAT? Because that motherfucker got more airtime on here than the goddamn Arizona Cardinals and Denver Broncos combined. Los Angeles Chargers on the road at Kansas City, starting off these afternoon games. We saw Lamar Jackson put on an MVP for us earlier in the day. Patrick Mahomes, he decided to throw on his cape and put on a show for the people as well. Over 300 yards in the first half, 4th time in his career he's done that. These are by far the 2 most exciting quarterbacks in the league, paired with defenses that were pretty dominant, I guess more so in Baltimore's fashion than Kansas City's, but Kansas City had a great game against the Chargers. These quarterbacks were able to lead their teams to victory. My question to you, obviously Chiefs had a resurgence on defense similar to the Detroit Lions, but has this offense answered your questions about them?
Say that again.
Has this offense answered some of your questions you've had about them?
Today, I would say yeah. I mean, I know he didn't do much in the offensive stat sheet, besides one catch. But I do think going forward that adding McCole Hardman back to the Chiefs roster could be up for trade of the year during the season because you get a guy who's familiar with the team, with the playbook. He comes in this week by trade, steps right in and just into a starting role and acts like he never left. He comes up with a clutch 3rd and 6 reception, his only reception of the game for a first down. You add his speed into that offense, you're going to have Kelsey more open. You're still going to have Kadarius Toney. You're still going to have Pacheco. I mean, look, it only bodes well for the Chiefs offense going forward. I really think, and they were smart by making this type of move. Like I said, it was either going to be, to me, Juju or McCole that they're going after because to get this thing going the way it's been going the past few years, you need familiarity in the offense. And that's what they brought in. So I expect the Chiefs offense to just keep getting better and better. I'm not saying McColl's a superstar by any means because he's not, but his knowledge of the offense, his camaraderie with the team since he's been there, I think it was just one of those light bulb goes off type moves, and you're like, yeah, we got to bring one of these guys back.
Yeah.
And when you have a guy like Mahomes throwing you the ball, rarely ever does it falter. So, and look, on the Chargers side of things, I just think, look, I thought they put up a decent fight for the most part, but they have a lot of second half woos. Ever since coming back and beating the Vikings in the second half of that game, they struggle in the second half. And I mean, we can blame Brandon Staley all day about his boneheaded mistakes as a coach, but look, Herbert's got a lot to prove to keep being an elite quarterback
I
in that
agree.
conversation. So right now he's really what's the word I want? He's kind of just like he's proven me wrong in a sense where it's like, you know, I'm usually very high on her, but he leaves a lot to be desired out there. He can make throws, obviously. He's got a strong arm. He can run a little bit, but I mean, the dude is just
Herbert's like the homie you let come stay at your crib for a little bit. Then before you know it, it's been 3 months. This motherfucker don't got a job. He ain't been looking, and he just using up all your food and electricity. It's like I need to see something different, bro. I need to see
yeah,
something different. So that's how I feel about Justin
exactly.
Herbert right now.
That's a great example. That's exactly how I feel. I mean, it's just and like I said, we always say they have great talent on paper, which they do, but it's always been the health aspect of their team, the coaching. But now it's like we got to start putting more weight and pressure on Herbert's shoulders because if you're going to be one of the greats, if you're going to be one of the elites in this league right now, you got to do more. You got to lead your team, you know, to more victories, to comebacks, to whatever. You know, you got to be one of those guys that you can be like, yes, I trust Herbert late in the game with the ball in his hands for a comeback drive. And right now, I just don't feel that way about him.
There's probably only one guy I do feel that way right now. It used to be Tom. It used to be Peyton. Aaron Rodgers to an
Oh
extent, but
yeah,
right now it's just Patrick, in my opinion.
it is. Yeah, I agree. But I think Herbert's got all the tools in the toolbox, and I think he's got all the uh,
He has
talent in
no
the world
excuses.
to be and all the pieces to be that kind of guy. It's just like there's something that, I'm not saying it's not clicking, but there's just something there that seems like it's holding him back. And guess what? It might be Brandon Staley, bro.
Yeah, that could be a big key to it. We'll go switch divisions here. Arizona at Seattle in the NFC West. Another feisty performance from Arizona, but as we know, these division games are always tough. Most times, the better team does come out on top. Seattle did what it needed to do to win the game. Would have liked to see more of a convincing win, specifically offensively, only putting up 20 points with the firepower you have against Arizona. A little questionable. I understand DK Metcalf was out, so I'll give you a little bit of slack. But now you're 4-2, right there with San Francisco, right there in the race for the playoffs still. How you feel about this Seattle versus Arizona game?
Definitely wasn't a pretty game for Seattle. I mean, credit to Seattle's defense for picking up the offense. You know, Cardinals, they turned three Seattle turnovers into only 3 points. That's not going to win
Hmm.
you games. Um, but to come away with 3 turnovers against Seattle in a division game, props to the Cardinals because they're still one of those bottom feeders who keeps kind of, even though they're losing, outperforming expectations. And I think sooner rather than later, Cardinals will be on the up and up. They just got to add some pieces into that team. Maybe get off Kyler Murray. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think they got the right coach in Arizona for this team specifically. You know, we got to see more. Obviously, it's just year one, but you know, if you keep building on it, adding pieces to the puzzle, I think the Cardinals could be back into that relevant topic. So, um, but it's just kind of one of those letdown games for Seattle because this one leaves a bad taste in my mouth where it's like I'm not truly sold on Seattle. I'm really not. I don't think they're that great of a team, bro. I think they're one of those middle of the pack teams.
Yeah, they're for sure one of those middle of the pack teams. That's kind of where we expected them to be. Just maybe a little bit higher than that though, but right on the outside of elite or real far playoff run contender. But this kind of performance against Arizona definitely not what I expected. I thought Seattle had way more firepower offensively and was probably going to get a defensive score or something as well against Arizona. But
Right.
like I said, division game, they're always tough. So all you want to do is really get out of here with the win, stay
Mm-hmm.
clean, and that's what they did. So you never want to see the turnovers the way they did. But I mean, I don't know, man. Seattle, like you said, they might have just had their run last year, and this is just another season where they put the pieces around them, but they're just not that good. They could be a good
No,
bad team or a bad
and
good
look,
team. I think they're going to fall in one of those categories.
with how good like Metcalf and you know Lockett and those type of guys are, you barely hear their names. Like you know, you should be hearing them often, and you just really don't. Like it's just kind of like if Gino has a great game, you hear their names. If he doesn't, they're just completely out of the picture.
Well, that's what it comes down to. Gino, he might have just had an anomaly season last year, kind of returning to the mean. Not what he was to start his career, but he's probably more so an average quarterback as opposed to a top 10 quarterback. I mean, he still is
Yep.
having a good season, but it wasn't like what we saw last year where they were a top 5, 10 offense.
Right.
So
Right.
we obviously don't have the same feeling about Seattle that we did. But right now they're 4-2. That's where you want to be. That's probably what you expected them to be at this point of the season. So they're getting the
Yep.
job done. Pittsburgh at the Los Angeles Rams. I have a good friend of mine who's a Steelers fan. We talked about fantasy, the season, Super Bowl aspirations, all that kind of stuff today. He said Pitt is not a Super Bowl contender, you know, and as I do agree with that because we have 4 contenders, 2 each conference or whatever your standings are looking like right now. I can see a month stretch where Tomlin has his defense playing out of their mind. They're allowing 13 to 17 points a game. Kenny Pickett, like he did against Baltimore, like he did in this game, lead some fourth quarter drives, a little Joe Flacco 2012 esque, and Pittsburgh can make a little run. They're now 4-2 after this win. They beat Baltimore, so if they did not go on bye and they had the same record, they would be the number 1 seed in this AFC North. This team is scary. Kenny Pickett starts games very slow, but they have offensive weapons over there that can be utilized when he does kick it in gear. And that's what he does in these fourth quarters. I don't know what it is. I don't know why he plays better, why he can lead these game winning drives, why he plays way better in the fourth quarter than he does the first 3, but that seems to be the case for Kenny Pickett. And again, Pittsburgh scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Look, I mean, whenever Mike Tomlin's in the picture, I mean, you just can't count him out. And I do think though Deontay Johnson coming back really kind of woke up this offense a little bit. I mean,
That's a big weapon. I agree.
and I think it allows Kenny to feel more comfortable with a guy like him back in the rotation, especially when you're trying to, you know, bring a guy like George Pickens along and turn him into the superstar you claim to think he might be. Um, so I think him coming back in the offense really kind of gave them a jump start, and I think it should only benefit them going forward. So this game, though, this game, the way they played overall, this is more of the type of Steelers I expected to see this year. solid defense, put points up on the board. They're not gonna run away with any games really. They're gonna be in those tough nosed games, but it's all about Tomlin and that defense. Just not saying they're bend but don't break defense because I think they're more than that, but really, just trying to put your foot on the opposing offense's throats. And you got a little bit of a lackluster offense, especially with Kenny Pickett leading the way. So that defense really has to step up and be the backbone of this team week in and week out.
Yeah, as we've been saying for a lot of these teams, they will only go as far as the quarterback takes them. I don't like the running back room over there, but Pittsburgh has some pieces where they can make a decent run. They'll probably do ultimately fall in that Seattle category. Are they a good
Yeah.
bad team or a bad good team? But they're going to be, competing for a lot of people's W's this year. Finishing this out, we had Green Bay at Denver. You called it. Can't believe you called it. But Jordan Love he's just not the answer. I think every week our worst team in the league changes. Am I comfortable saying it's New England, Denver, or Chicago after they got W's this week? I don't know. But right now, I do feel comfortable welcoming Green Bay and Las Vegas to the chat. These are all teams in contention, right there with Arizona as well. This honestly might be the most embarrassing game of the week. I mean, obviously Buffalo losing to New England is, but when you really think about it, man, Denver is just a terrible, terrible team. Green Bay, they have so many weapons on defense to prevent Denver from scoring 19 points. They have
Yep.
weapons on offense to put up more than 17 points against a Denver defense who is nowhere near what we expect or what we think when we think of Denver
Yep.
Broncos defense as of late. I have no idea, man. Matt LaFleur, he's probably reeling over there trying to figure out what to do with this offense because this
He's
is
in
a
a hot
far
seat,
cry
bro.
from Aaron Rodgers. You think it's hot seat time?
It might be. I mean, look,
Jordan Love is bad.
Packers ain't used to losing, bro. This organization is not used to losing in recent years, so they might have a couple down years, but that's due to Rodgers going down to injury and not being able to quarterback, and that's when they really shit the bed.
That's true.
Um, on paper, this Green Bay's defense has a lot of talent, but they're just not showing up. And I think the defense is just on the field way too long. This offense can't get out of their own way, but it all boils down to Jordan Love, bro. This dude crumbles under pressure. He has overthrows. He has quite a few underthrows, and he has very poor decision making.
Yo, the third and
This
20
man,
pass you threw at the end of the game, there's no reason for it. No
no,
reason for it. And you threw it in the double team. The two defenders were the closest to the ball. Your receiver was nowhere near it. It's just terrible
no.
decision making.
And to be look, and for me, while I picked Denver, in the back of my head was like, man, I kind of feel like Green Bay might have a little bit of a coming out party against this Denver team. And it just halftime it was 9-0 Denver. And I'm thinking, what the when is it when do you ever see a Packers team not score points in the first half, let alone any half?
Bro, it's it's wild. And one touchdown I did see them score in the end zone, went through
It
one
was a
receiver's
tip.
hands and landed in another receiver's hands. How many times does that happen? 99
It
out of
just
100 that gets picked going the other way. So 17,
just pure
that
luck.
was
So
impressive.
this 19-17 score is an anomaly because it was not even that close.
No, this was a bad
It,
game from Green
it was
Bay.
a it was a horrendous game, and it was beautiful for me to watch because these like I've been saying all offseason was Aaron Rodgers left. The Packers are a cellar dweller. Yes, the Vikings are 2-4 as well, but we got and I might be talking a little out of my ass right because we play them next week, and if we lose, that'll be an embarrassment all of its own. But we have, at least on paper, because we've been playing pretty porous this year, we have way more talent than this Packers team does. I mean, they have quite a bit of talent on defense, but offensively though, even with JJ out, we have a lot more talent than they do. And so, to me, we are truly still the better team than the Packers. I think the Packers are fighting with the Bears right now to be the worst team in the division.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And like you said, you couldn't have been happier. Huge playoff aspirations for the Packers. but those are probably out the window now after
And
after a
the
game
way
like this.
this week of games went, bro, I hate saying this because it's like I don't know which way to feel about the Vikings because I know we're not that great of a team. But the way the fucking NFC is set up, bro, we get past this 49ers loss we're about to take tomorrow. Take the punch in the fucking mouth, get back up, and guess what? You start with the Packers next week, and the schedule's a little lighter, and you'll reel off 4 or 5 wins. Well, guess what? You go from 2-5 to 500, and now you're in the wild card race.
NFC North went
So
0-3. It's wide open.
it 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 it's scary because we might be one of those last two wild card spots, and we're piss poor. But
Yeah,
But that just means, but that to me, that's not saying we're a good team or whatever. That's me saying this NFC after those fucking 3, 4 maybe teams, it's so bad.
it just comes down to the quarterback for a lot of teams, and I don't think there are a lot of good quarterbacks anymore.
No, and but that's the scary thing too. Is I think if the Vikings are somehow able to rattle off, 4 maybe 5 wins in a row after this 49ers game, that that obviously, especially without JJ, that gives your team so much confidence when he comes back that you kind of got to watch out for the Vikings
I love to
now.
hear it.
I'm not saying like it's a Super Bowl type run. I'm just saying you kind of got to watch because they're sneaky. Puts them into that sneaky category.
It does. I mean, I could be a hater and say whatever. This is what your team is, but you're not as bad as your record shows. We all know that. It should honestly be flipped around. And the conversation around the team would be way different if that was the case. So if you do go on this 4 or 5 game run, which I think is very possible, you're right there, like you said. And do I think you can compete with Seattle or whoever else is going to be at the back end of that NFC playoff race? I do. Just take care of the fucking ball. That's it.
Repeat that last sentence.
I just said take care of the ball. Your shit was frozen. My shit got froze. I think we should end it on that. That was week 7 recap. I don't want nothing else to happen with this, man. We appreciate y'all. We'll see y'all next time.